You are listening to I Am Refocused Radio with your host, Shamaya Reed. This show is designed to inspire you to live your purpose and regain your focus. And now, here's your host, Shamaya Reed.
Welcome to I Am Refocused Radio. Once again, we are here today, and man, we have another amazing show. We have the one and only Abby Phillip. She's going to be talking about her new book, A Dream Deferred, Jesse Jackson and the Fight for Black Political Power. You know her from CNN. She's the anchor of NewsNight. I know you got a lot of stuff on your calendar, so thank you for making some time this morning. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, ma'am. When you think about the process of writing this book, you had an honor to talk to Jesse Jackson. What were some of the details that stood out for you as he reflected on some of the memories?
Yeah. I mean, he talked a lot about these stepping stones that even led to him deciding to run for president. And the way that he saw it was just, there was a lot of strategy and foresight there. And also there was perhaps more courage than I think people give him credit for, because when he first proposed this idea of a Black person running for president, you have to understand that a lot of Black people did not like that idea. they thought it was a fool's errand. A lot of his peers who were elected officials, who were very prominent leaders, they did not like the idea and they refused to do it themselves. And I think that he saw something in the potential for using a presidential run to gain leverage that was actually very, it was very wise, and it was, it really kind of got ahead of what would happen many decades later. And so the clarity with which he remembers those things and can really explain and break it down was really impressive. I mean, I spoke to him over the last 4 years or so. He's battling Parkinson's disease, but is really clear as day about some of these memories and the why of it, the why it matters, which is so important to him.
When you look at the lens that he looked through in observing power, when you look at today's climate and today's politics, how do you see his political journey, how it reshaped the idea of power in America's politics today?
Yeah, I mean, I think he understood that by working together, people together have more power than people individually. So he was a huge advocate for not just Black voters registering to vote en masse and then using their power collectively, but also aligning with other groups as well. And so he spent a lot of time working with Asian Americans and Arab Americans and Hispanic Americans and bringing them into the political process in ways they had not been brought into the political process before. And so what we understand as true coalition politics is a bedrock of that, is what Jesse Jackson taught so many of the prominent political activists today. And I think he understood also that establishments, regardless of political party, are not very eager to give power away. And so you have to demand it. And so in his case, the way to demand it was to use leverage. And he thought it was very important to gain leverage by running a candidate themselves, by uniting these groups together, and then demanding concrete changes. He demanded changes to the platform, changes to the way the party nominates candidates. He made it possible so that an outsider could run and potentially win. And it took 20 years for us to see the results of that. But Barack Obama was the main beneficiary of those rule changes that Jesse Jackson pushed through.
Once again, let's on Refocused Radio, talking to our guest today, Abby Phillip. Get a copy of her book that we're talking about right now, A Dream Deferred, Jesse Jackson and the Fight for Black Political Power. When you understand how a lot of leaders are misunderstood, when you look at Jesse's life and what he sacrificed with his leadership, do you believe that people sometimes have to reflect on history before they truly understand the impact that he had?
I definitely think that history is something that gets more clear over time. There's the immediate of what we do in the media today, which is sort of writing things as they're happening right now. And then there's what we do down the road. And that's part of what this book is. It's taking what was initially written and saying, I think there's even more to the story. And, I think that Jesse Jackson was stereotyped in a lot of ways because he came out of a civil rights tradition, which at the time was still pretty controversial. He was considered because, in the 70s, he used to rock this afro and he used to have the big chains. And, there was a whole kind of Black Power vibe to him in the 70s. And by the time he came to the 80s, there were a lot of white Americans who didn't take him seriously or thought that he was a radical. And I definitely think that some of that was preconceived notions of what a Black man should look like and how he should present himself. And it wasn't that related to what he was actually saying and advocating for. And so, yeah, there is an opportunity to go back and look at those chapters and ask yourself, what was he really running on? And was it the way that he was portrayed in the dominant media at the time?
When you look how Jesse Jackson, how he united workers, students, and communities across race and class, what made his approach to the power so groundbreaking?
I think that he was unafraid to be in opposition to the establishment. He was running within a political party, but he was running against a political party at the same time. And that's what made him so impactful. That's what made him stand out to voters, because he recognized that there was this strain in American politics where Americans are kind of sick of the establishment. We saw it then and we see it now. And he really leaned into that and spoke to that and understood that by differentiating himself, he wasn't poll testing every single thing that he said and did, but he differentiated himself in a way that helped him stand out.
When you think about how leaders like yourself are doing well in the media world and where you had to come from, Harvard and all these great places, doing your thing, what do you hope people appreciate from this book as an example of someone who rise to the occasion?
This was a part of my, it's part of the opportunity and the blessing that I have in the job that I have. I do think that there is a need for more history to be told by people who have a biography that is similar to mine, because I think that we can each bring different things to these stories. I think that I can approach the story a little bit differently from other people, centering different voices in this narrative. And that's part of what I was trying to do, which is to talk to different types of people and listen to them and reflect their memories and views in these pages. And so I do think that the lesson, if there's anything to be taken away, is that every person has a unique perspective that they can bring to their craft. And that perspective is needed. And you should lean into that and do it, because somebody else out there is going to see themselves reflected in the work that you're doing as well.
We've been talking to Abby Phillip. Get a copy of her book right now, A Dream Deferred, Jesse Jackson in the Fight for Black Political Power. Like always, I want to say thanks to you for your time this morning.
Thank you so much.